Wall Street Journal reports today newly uncovered documents show that White House officials coordinated with Hillary Clinton's advisors on their response to stories about her private server from the early days. At one point, trying to shield John Kerry, who was then Secretary of State, from having to answer questions about it. Juan Williams, Fox News political analyst, author of the book We the People, Mercedes Schlapp, former immediate spokeswoman for President George W. Bush, and a Fox News contributor. Good morning to both of you. Time frame's important here now. Early 2015, New York Times just breaks the story about the private server in the basement of Chappaqua. That's around the same time that Hillary Clinton is starting to organize her campaign. And Mercedes, what would this suggest if it plays out?
You know, it really raises so many questions, Bill, in terms of the fact is this a politicized State Department? I mean, are we looking at the fact that would there be potential coordination between a State Department and the Clinton campaign even going into the future? With the emails that we're seeing right now, obviously they were trying to figure out a way, the White House and the State Department, to make sure that they protect Secretary Kerry, and then, of course, Secretary Kerry, in the meantime, protecting Hillary Clinton. It just, when you start putting these pieces together, Bill, I think it's a bit alarming. And I was talking to a former White House counsel who basically said, is this the tip of the iceberg? I mean, is this something that eventually could lead to the Office of Special Counsel coming in and further investigating these email exchanges?
we got a ways to go on that. Let me come back to that point in a moment, legal implications. Juan, how do you see this story right now?
Well, I was just tapping into what you and Mercedes were talking about, which is the timeline, because what you know is that the New York Times broke the email story in March of 2015, and then a few days after, we see this flurry of communication between State and, first, the White House, and we have Jennifer Palmieri, who is now working for Hillary Clinton, then in the Obama White House. And what they're doing is Jennifer Palmieri is talking to Jen Psaki, who's over at the State Department, and by the way, Psaki later goes to the White House, saying, you know what, we can keep Kerry off of these Sunday morning talk shows, avoid talking about the email problem. But the second one is a communication that's more interesting to me, which is a communication between State and one of Clinton's lawyers, saying we have not told the Congress or anybody that Mrs. Clinton erred by using the private server. In both cases, though, you have to put this in context. It's the RNC, the Republican National Committee, obtained these emails as part of their look into this, and this seems to be the highlight, the headline. And as such, it's not illegal.
We'll see. I think this is the question now. What does the law say about the White House getting involved potentially in political campaigns?
Well, it says nothing. At the moment, what we know, even as the Wall Street Journal reported it, is that no law was broken
at this point on what we've seen in this particular email. But here's the deal. We know that the White House, I worked in the White House, the State Department, White House, many of these agencies, they have to follow the Hatch Act. And there are strict regulations, strict restrictions on how you can politically engage and basically not being able to politically engage, Bill. So I think the fact is when you start seeing these communications on Kerry potentially protecting Hillary Clinton, trying to figure out what talking point Secretary Kerry is going to say on this email server, and the fact that the State Department was trying to squash the story with CBS, and we know that there's these relationship between the White House, Ben Rhodes, whose brother happens to be the president of CBS. There's just so many of the situation right now that I think really leaves us with a lot of questions to answer.
So the Hatch Act is designed to put a wall between these agencies and government. But everybody in that town swims in the same pool anyway, don't they, Mercedes?
Well, they shouldn't. But, you know, the other question that that we have to raise is the fact that why does it take so long for the White House or the State Department to respond to these FOIA requests? You know, for so long, Hillary Clinton has been stonewalling on these emails. So has the State Department. 2 years, I mean, you're talking 2015, year later that we're starting to discover more of the fact that there could be this potential coordination between the State Department,
the other thing here, Juan, you mentioned it. He did a CBS interview, John Kerry did, and was not asked about this.
Right. Well, I don't know how that came about. I mean, that's suspicious to my mind, you know, because obviously the story was out there, and you would think that given he's the Secretary of State and her successor, that he would be asked about it. So, you know, to Mercedes' points about all these connections and who runs CBS and who was at the White, possibly. But I just think at this point, we're really grabbing at straws. If there's a real issue here, it is that, you know, people are upset in this election season about Hillary Clinton's emails, and this looks like something out there dangling, but there's no hard
listen,
case here.
I've got to go. We got to get back to this storm.
Yeah.
He could always do Steve Harvey.
Well, there's a political storm happening,
No,
obviously.
I get it. Mercedes, thank you. Juan and a million thanks to you as well.
Thank
Back to
you.
Matthew right now.